This is Ryan Poley. Welcome to the How Did I Get Here podcast. This is a conversation I had with Rooney O'Brien, the chef of Black Dynasty Ramen in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nicholas Jeffrey Rooney, or his stage name in the ramen business, Chef Rooney. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for being on this with us, man.
Thank you.
Super pumped you're here.
Yeah, dude.
So in typical fashion of How Did I Get Here podcast, how'd you get here, man? Why'd you start cooking? Where are you from? Give us the story.
Okay. Man, I moved here in 2015. I got fired from every job I had from the time I was 17 to 22. It wasn't that I was a bad worker. I had a real attitude problem.
Not you. Mild-mannered?
Yeah,
Rooney.
just really together, you know.
Where'd you move from?
California.
Oh, right on, yeah.
Yeah. I remember I worked at this French cafe. I was a dishwasher there for 2 years, and you know, I one day there was just a pan that had this cheese that wouldn't fucking come off. And I just like blacked out and took the pan and repeatedly hit it in the dish pit over and over and over again. And I like slightly bent the dish pit out of frustration. And the next day, it was owned by two French brothers, and one of them comes up to me and is like, "You're a really good dishwasher, but you're a little too crazy. We're gonna have to let you go." And I was like, "Fuck, here we go again."
How old were you then?
I think I was 19.
That was your first experience in the restaurant industry. Did you know you wanted to cook then, or what? You took a dishwashing job because...
You know, in capitalism, we get jobs we need, not jobs we want. I mean, before that, my first job ever that wasn't working on the farm. So I grew up on a ranch, taking care of horses and growing weed and trimming weed with my family. And I got a job at Taco Bell, and I worked there for about 9 months, and I booked a band in the lobby. I had some friends that got some money from a Nokia commercial. I'm not writing this shit. I'm serious.
Wait, is this like, what the fuck's up, Denny's?
It was like, I mean, it was way fucking.
Is there a video of this?
It was way, I think if it is online, I think they took everything down because dude's girlfriend broke up with him, and then he went to go be a fucking blueberry farmer after like living and breathing rock and roll for like so many years, which is like good for him. Like now it's like funny. I like showed up in the same spot, you know.
We're
like
3 minutes into this. This is already the most interesting podcast I've ever heard of so far.
So
go on.
So my two friends, they were a 2-piece band. They were called Will Crumb. They got a bunch of money from this Nokia commercial they did. So they're like, fucking sick. I don't have to work. So then
they get like 20 grand.
So then, yeah, exactly. Like really not shit.
Yeah,
like in the grand scheme of things,
Scrooge
like
McDuck swimming around in it.
Dude, like hood rich. So they decided to like travel around the country and just like they crashed a bunch of festivals. They crashed parties. They crashed public places. And so like I saw them at a show at Bottom of the Hill in San Francisco. They crashed the women's bathroom in the middle of like a Ty Segall set.
What do you mean they crashed by setting up and
they just set up and started playing. That was it. Like he just had like the microphone, small PA speaker, and an amp, and they had like a 4-piece drum kit, and that was it.
Pull that microphone just a little bit away from you.
And he had like a little drum kit. And so they were like, "Hey, we really want to like crash your Taco Bell." And it was like and I was like, "Yeah, dude, I'm a cashier there. I don't give a fuck. Like, be my guest." So then they set up. It's opening week of like the college right across the way, and they start playing. And my manager comes and unplugs their amp, and then I just like in a frenzy dive under the table, plug it back in, start screaming at the manager like, "Quit being a fucking buzzkill! Like, this is rock and roll, man!" And like 30 minutes later, he's like, "You're fired."
So that's fire number 2 so far. So fire number 1 was Taco Bell. Fire number 2 was you assaulted the sink in the dish machine.
I assaulted the sink in the dish
the
dish pit. One was verbal accosting. Yeah. The other one was accosting the dish pit.
You haven't professionally cooked anything.
No, at this point.
At this point,
absolutely no.
Great.
I haven't even touched anything. Right. They didn't even let me work the line at Taco Bell. Like, that's how good of a cook I am. They didn't let me work the line at Taco Bell.
They didn't let you use the caulking sour cream gun?
No.
Right. So you get fired from the French place.
I get fired from the French
and you're
place.
Like, all right, I'm going to go trim weed with my family.
Yeah, trim weed with my family. And I worked a bunch of little odd jobs here and there. I was a dishwasher at a pizza place, and it was like a lot of it was like me getting fired because I couldn't make it to work. The bus system was shitty, and it's just like this cycle when you're broke, right? And it's like my even though like we had horses and that sounds luxurious, like I didn't come from money. It was like we started growing weed out of necessity, which is like, what a great idea. Like, let's grow weed in like the most saturated marijuana market in the entire fucking country.
It's like let's open up a hot chicken restaurant in
Nashville, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It's like, okay, like, but that was my family's idea. I'm like, when they started doing it, I was like 14. What sense did I have?
It's like that circle of, there was an old don't do drugs commercial in the 80s of, I do more cocaine so I can work more hours so I can make more money. So I can do more cocaine so I can work more hours. It's
the cycle
like I'm
is
broke. It's like I need gas money to go to work in order to make money to get gas money.
Well, it was even more fucked up. It was like I need a job to buy a car. I can't get the car. I can't make it to work without the car. I can't make it. I can't make it to work without the car. It was over and over again, right? So it was just too much.
Yeah. All right. So what happened next?
Long story short, I ended up getting a job. So my father had passed away, and I ended up moving back in with my brother. During this time of me working all these odd jobs.
What was the time frame from when you got fired from the French restaurant to you starting your first cooking job? Or stable cooking job.
5 years.
Oh, 5 years
later.
Wow.
So, but during that time,
and you were
I was playing
17,
music.
16, 17?
Yeah,
Okay.
I got the Taco Bell job when I was like 17, and then I got 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, so that was like 5-6 years from the Taco Bell job, and during that time I was playing music. I was helping record bands on like a 4-track Tascam whatever, and like booking shows without a consistent venue, and like convincing bands from Brazil to come to bumfuck California.
Yeah.
And
obviously you got bounced out of Taco Bell, so that venue wasn't there.
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly.
Yeah,
that
right.
wasn't an option anymore, right? It was done. That door was closed. No mas. And I ended up moving. Before I moved here, I ended up getting a job as a dishwasher at a Vietnamese place, and the chef there, his name was Chef Khan. He had like no teeth, and was a really, really, really good cook. That's probably what I should have led with. I was like, yeah, chef had no teeth.
We can edit all this out.
It's fine. Doesn't bother me. He's incredible chef, incredible dude. And he's like, I've only been cooking for 10 years. Like, his whole saying was like, this is easy money. Like, he always said it like with this really, really intense accent. He smoked American Spirit Blacks and had a raised black truck that was spray painted matte black. And he's like this old Vietnamese man, skinny as a stick, but like fucking tough. This guy was tough. And so I asked him, like, I was dishwashing, and they needed help working the line. And I was like, hey, I'd love to learn. Like, can you teach me? And he's like, yeah. So I'm just like, it's all, if you're not doing the prep at a Vietnamese place, it's all just like, you're compiling. You're just, what's the word? Your assembly line, right? Just like any like kind of fast food line is like functions in a similar fashion. You're just assembling. So I asked him, hey, I really want to know the marinade for the pork. And he said, you have to work for me for 10 fucking years if I'm going to tell you what's in that marinade. So I just like kept paying attention. I'm like, okay, kiwis. Okay, soy sauce. Okay, this, that, and the other fish sauce. It was like, I didn't know anything about food at this point. Right. I hated restaurants when I was playing music. I was just like, what is this pretentious bullshit? Why would I pay this much money? I'm just going to go get a burger. Like, what's the point? I don't get it. I was like, these people are normies that go here. They're hoity-toity. Like, I don't like them. I'm not them. They're not me. Like, fuck this. Right. So moving here, I still didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I had a little bit of money saved up from working that job for 9 months and living at my brother's. I got a car. I paid 6 months of rent. I like had some time to like figure my life out. It's like I almost got a job as a janitor at a church. that interview was really interesting. He like shows me the whole church. It's like a mega church here in town. I don't even remember which one. He shows me around, and he's like, "Oh, so like where do you worship?" And I was like, "I don't." He's like, "Oh, are you Christian?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "I'm not getting this job."
Not a chance.
I mean, it was $12 an hour to be a janitor.
So rewind a second. So you're at the Vietnamese place.
I'm at the Vietnamese place.
Yeah, in California.
Yeah. And
you're working the line.
And I'm working the line.
Okay, what were you doing?
I was working.
Besides not getting the marinade pork recipe.
Which I like really wanted. Like I still want it. Like Con, if you're listening, like I really need that. Like please. I was just working Fuzz Station and doing spring rolls and doing. It was like a 2-person line, so it was like. Right. It was the menu. The menu was pretty big, but it was also, it was all like very similar ingredients.
It's X amount of ingredients, and you can make 50 dishes.
50 dishes, right? It's all about ratios, and that's like
okay. So you're at the Vietnamese place, and you decide you want to move to Nashville.
Yeah, my cousin had a room for rent.
Okay,
it wasn't like
So you got a tie here.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
My cousin lived here. She has a house here. I think she moved back to California.
But why would you want to get out of California? What was just an opportunity that was offered and you're like, fuck it, I'll just do it? Or you're like, I can't stay here anymore?
It was like I didn't see a future there.
What town were you in?
I was in the Sonoma County area, like North Bay,
right.
So it was like I've been here almost my whole life, I mean, I had bopped around the Bay Area when I was younger. I was in foster care from the time I was like 8 to 14. And so like I'd been all around the Bay Area, spent a lot of time in LA for fun with friends. But then I just was like, hey, I can't just like sleep on couches. Like your luck's going to run out. It's like I had
old fast.
I had a house condemned because my neighbor passed out on Klonopin and lit his house on fire. And we were already en route to get evicted by these terrible landlords. And so then the house got condemned and I squatted there for 2 months. And so it was like all these things led up. I had a terrible lifestyle. I let rock and roll be this like guise to just be an asshole and to like disregard taking care of myself and so it was really toxic and unhealthy.
Do you think you were hiding behind that? Like you're using the rock and roll lifestyle as like, this is a crutch.
A way to deal with trauma.
A way to deal with it. Like you knew that there were problems that you had to face, but you're suppressing it, and you had this rock and roll lifestyle that offers a fuck you to the man, and I can sleep on couches, and that kind of that punk rock style lifestyle.
Yeah, it's like I don't need a white picket fence and this and that. Yeah. Like drop out of college.
So do you think that's what you really thought, or do you think that that's just what you were doing in order to get by day to day? I mean, it sounds to me like you had a pretty fucking hard life.
Yeah, I have always had a really positive demeanor and been like, hey, I think people who meet me wouldn't think that like off the cuff, like, oh, this dude like had this, that, and the other. It's like, yeah, my mom passed away when I was 12
right.
and the foster care thing and this, that, and the other and yada, yada, yada. I'm just a big believer in like, not everything happens for a reason. That's not.
Yeah, that's not a great fucking point.
That's not it. And anybody
things
who thinks
just happen, man.
Things just happen. I personally don't believe in a judicial balance in the universe. Because if there was judicial balance in the universe, bad things wouldn't happen to good people and good things wouldn't happen to bad people.
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense, man.
So what do? You just exist. You try to make good decisions. You try to like right your wrongs and be better and self-reflect and like improve and be fucking good to people. And you just because you take the silver lining of something, if you take the silver lining of a bad situation, I think a lot of times people see the silver lining and they say, that's the reason this happened. It's like, no, you're just a resilient human.
Yes.
Pat yourself on the back. No one gave that to you except for you.
Right. Well, the flip side to that is how unresilient, is that a word? Unresilient people are. Bad things happen, and instead of, not many people can just pick themselves up and dust them off and get back on the horse.
No, that's
bad things happen. People fall into addiction, they fall into depression, and it's very difficult to find a silver lining or to have a positive. It's I don't know what's in the human nature. It's so comfortable just to complain and be miserable. and have someone around you that's just as miserable that you could just complain to all the time. And instead of fixing the problem, it's just easier to like wallow in darkness.
I do see that happen a lot even in this industry, right? When you're like camaraderie of being like, oh, well, like, fuck that sous chef or whatever.
Right.
Like when you're a line cook, whatever. I don't know. It's like, I would say that it's like people attribute these things to like ideologies, politics, race, socioeconomic upbringing, whatever. But it's like, I do think that some people have more advantages than others. I think that to not recognize people's differences is like ignorant. I mean, anyone who's like, I don't see color. It's like, you're a fucking idiot. You're a fucking idiot, man. Like, people are different. Yeah. And that's what makes life beautiful. Like, we should like celebrate the fact that everybody, like some people have a harder life than others. And like, to me, even all things considering, I had it pretty easy. I had foster brothers and sisters whose parents literally sold them for drugs.
Right, yeah.
My parents always loved me. My mother was mentally ill. My father had severe dyslexia and was involved in the, like, as an Irish American, he involved himself in the Irish struggle and used to sell cups and t-shirts for Sinn Féin, which is a political group that directly funded IRA. Right. And so, like, there was a combination of those things that like got me put into foster care. You know, I didn't learn how to read or write till I was like 9 because my mother had taken me out of school when I was that young and like couldn't handle me being away. She had paranoid delusional schizophrenia. So she was always convinced that the neighbors were going to kill us, that this, that, and the other. And like,
they were
being raised with that. Oh yeah,
they
did.
were. They were definitely out to get you.
I fucking got them. You know, it's
I mean, fuck, man. What a story.
Hey, I'm not trying to make it somber or nothing, man. It's just great. Real life.
All right, so so then you get to Nashville.
I get to Nashville.
Yeah. Because obviously you had hindsight to say, like, this is not a good place for me to be.
Yeah.
And you had an opportunity to come to Nashville with your sister?
My cousin.
Your cousin.
Yeah. She lived here for like 9 years at that point, had a house. And she was like, hey, I got a room for rent. If you need to change your scenery, you need to like start over, think about your life. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'll take that opportunity.
Great.
So did that, ended up making some friends with people in the music scene. This band called the Psychics. I ended up moving in with them. They're originally from Indiana. And I got a job where my friend Nick Harley, who played in the Psychics, he was like, yeah, I work at this place called Shohan. I'm a food runner. They may need some help in the back of the house if you want to hop on. I was like, yeah, sure. So I go and work at Shohan. I'm a dishwasher and like expo assistant. And then, you know, one of my closest friends to this day, Riley, he trained me to be a fry cook there. And like, I didn't know anything about anything. And this was back in 2016. And so he taught me how to be fry cook at this like high volume, you know, Indian restaurant.
High-end Indian restaurant. I mean, that's a great place to start. You're going to learn.
You're
going to learn for sure.
It taught me how to taste for sure because people taste curry and they're like, oh, there's a lot going on. This is an explosion of flavor. And it's like, no, like now, like when I make curries, I'm like, no, that needs more methi masur. That needs more like dried fenugreek leaf. Like it needs this, that, or the other, you know, and like certain things that people won't, like you can look at a million recipes online, but there's like things that like a curry master won't tell you, and you just need to like watch him. Like you got to watch Kumar, dude.
Yeah.
Like the chef Kumar, serious, you know, he's not there anymore, but you know, great guy.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when I started there, I was just like kind of working it like a job. And then when I started cooking, I was like, oh, this clicked for me. Like this is very similar to rock and roll and music, and that it is a pirate ship. It is like an alternative lifestyle. It is like late nights. It's intense. It's wild. But there's a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
And that was like something I didn't have. That was like something I lacked so severely, was like the discipline, the order, the purpose, the sense of purpose.
I feel with your past, you're probably extremely drawn to that like a magnet.
Oh, absolutely.
Because subconsciously your brain was probably starved for it. And the first inclination that you're going to have a little bit of discipline or a little bit of structure, I could see, I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I could see you just being like, yeah.
Hey, Dr. Poley in the house.
Right on. I think I was the same way. I mean, I like the same thing for me is when I started cooking. My first day it was this is a band of fucking pirates, man. This is fucking the most rock star in shambles place I've ever seen in my life, and this is fucking cool. And I didn't start work till 2:00 in the afternoon, you know. And I was like 18. And they're sneaking me into the bar at night, so I can definitely relate to you seeing that. So you were there, you're crushing it. How long did you stay at Shohan for?
I was at Shohan for roughly 2 years.
Well, that's a good amount of time, yeah.
And then
you worked your way through all the stations.
I worked my way through all the stations, and then I went to Tanso, and I was just a line cook there, and then I got promoted to be a sous chef there at the Chinese spot. I had expressed interest when I believe the opening chef, his name was Chris Chung. He has East Wind Snack Shop in Brooklyn. He actually just put out a cookbook. I mean, really talented chef, really brilliant guy, and he was one of the first dudes who I had previous chefs who I would want to understand and talk about and think about, like, what's the historical significance of food, what's the socioeconomics of food, what's like the politics of food, like how, like, what's the philosophy of food, like more than just like, this is how you make something, it's delicious. Like, how do these things relate to life in a bigger way? Well,
especially when you I think is when you dive into French cuisine. And I when I was in Spain, I learned in Spain, there was this potato dish. I forget, potatoes a la importance, I think it was. And it was like these, you confit potatoes, like little coins of potatoes, and then you batter them in flour and egg, and then you fry them, almost like you would like a French toast or something. It's potato, and then they're like covered, glazed in sauce. Yeah. And the story that Sergio Rolla told me about is like, well, this is not something I came up with. This is like from the potato famine way back when, and that's when I
potatoes.
I started really to kind of understand the philosophy, and I really dove, especially in Spanish because I was living there at the time, like the history behind some of these dishes and like where it came about and how tapas came about. And for me, that was so interesting. Like you don't really get to see that here. There's not really a history of cuisine in America if you're outside of New Orleans, or California cuisine has its own kind of thing going, but that's fairly new. Yeah. You know, I think it is. New Orleans is probably the only culinary rich area, if you would. Well,
I think I wouldn't say that's true. I think it's more so people aren't willing to talk about it, right? Like, what is Southern food?
It's correct. The whole Southern Beltway.
I mean, when I think about American food, and that was like a big thing that made me say, no, I want to stay here. Like, once I fell in love with food and I was like, okay, this clicks. Like, this is something that makes sense. I have mad ADHD. I've never been diagnosed. I've taken
You just know.
Some people, some people take Adderall and they're like, yeah, dude, this is wild. This is fun. And I take it and I'm like,
just levels you out.
Yeah. I'm chill. Yeah. I'm a mind ninja now.
Yeah, me too.
So people are like, you want to party? And I'm like, no, I want to fucking function like a normal human being.
I want to write something. I want to clean my house.
I want to know how to live like a real human.
Yeah. I called my friend Scott the other day. I'm like, hey, I take Adderall every once in a while just for a little pep me up sometimes. And I go, sometimes it doesn't work anymore. And he's like, well, how do you feel? I'm like, I just feel normal. He goes, yeah, because you probably fucking need it. And it's doing its job. And I'm like, okay.
I would like to dive into, things that are maybe less habit forming. For the record, I don't have a fucking Adderall problem. I just want to put that out there.
Sounds like you do.
It sounds like I do. Yeah, I'm scratching my neck right now. You hear that? You hear that?
Hey, can we take a pause for an Adderall break? So you finish at the Chinese place? Yeah. You were there a year.
I was there for 2 years. I was with Morph Hospitality for like roughly 4 years.
That's a good company, right?
Yeah.
They do right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think so, man. I had left them, and during that time, before I was a sous chef at Tanso, during my time at Shohan and in my first like 6 months at Tanso, I had worked at Nikki's Coal Fired. I was a part of Tony's opening team, and that was really cool to be a part of and to see. I was like, I have found myself by accident always working in Asian cuisine, and like I really loved it. That's the food that I'm passionate about. But I was like, well, I feel like I need to get my bearing in like Italian and French and classic and New American as well, and like understand those things, and like
Nikki's Coal Fired, it's I believe the only coal fired ovens, pizza ovens in the state. And it's, you can make a pizza in less than 90 seconds in those guys. It's awesome.
You could burn a pizza in less than
90 seconds. Yeah. If you don't know what you're doing.
Right. Yeah.
But I remember he was, when I was, I was originally supposed to be on saute, and like, I think he thought that I was just like moving too fast. I was like, he's like, you're too fast for the station. You need to like relax. I'm going to put you on pizza. And I was like, okay. So just like building pizzas in like, 45 seconds and throwing them in the oven and toss, go. And did that for, I was part of his opening team, and I worked there probably for 4 months, just because my chef at the time at Shohan was like, hey, I want to start talking to you about, potential, management, whatever, yada, yada. And I was like, okay, here's an opportunity here, more hours, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, let's talk about it. Then after I had left, I had also staged at that time at 210. And so I started getting interested in ramen, because of, when you're talking
now
about,
it's all coming together, Preston.
When you're talking about, history of cuisine, like, is something that's really cool about ramen, aside from it coming from China and being appropriated by the Japanese, is that like the ramen boom really happened because it's been around for, over like 100 years.
Forever.
The ramen boom in Japan happened because of the famine post World War II in Japan. And so you have, Nishin Top Ramen, Ando Momofuku, who was a businessman, really, he wasn't even a chef. He developed instant ramen, Top Ramen, because of the surplus of wheat that came from the UK and the US. And they were like, well, there's kind of a push to be like, well, we should make bread. And it was like, no, let's like stay true to ourselves. And like here we have something that's not, it's not rice and it's not buckwheat, but it's not, it's not udon, but it's ramen. It's a wheat flour, but we're going to choose. It's just this weird duality and dichotomy of like flour versus rice and choosing flour out of necessity, and then bread versus noodle and choosing noodle out of tradition. And so like that is a thing that essentially saved a country and continues to like be a staple of college kids and working class America. Like that's why I fell in love with it, was because I grew up eating Top Ramen on food stamps.
But the amazing thing about Japanese culture and cuisine is you could fly to Tokyo and you could spend $20 a day on food.
Yeah.
Or you could fly to Tokyo and you could spend $500 a day on food. There literally is everything for everybody, whether you get, soba noodles, where you get ramen, where you get tempura,
high quality
sushi. Like, but even like in some of the places, the sushi there is cheap, man. Sushi is not, it's not looked at as a luxury like it is here. It's almost like a kind of working man's thing.
Yeah.
And then you get into like the higher end omakase menus and things, and then the Kobe beef and all those tastings and the shabu shabus and stuff. Like the range of Japanese restaurants is so broad that you could get lost just in focusing on tempura.
Yeah.
And you go to these masters of tempura that they fry one thing, they change the oil. Tonkatsu is another thing that most recently I just got turned on to.
Yeah.
Like the whole art behind it, the shaved cabbage and mixing it, and then the little condiments.
The fried pork cutlet. It's beautiful.
Fried pork cutlet. There's such tradition and they're so fanatical about cuisine. It's kind of an amazing thing. So
there's just a lot of reverence and respect there for all things, and I think it has to do a lot with a cultural mindset, right? Like, even not that this is like the country's like, overall religion or anything, but like, Taoism, the idea that like everything has a spirit is really beautiful. And everything just has such a reverence and respect. And I think that, with, efficiencies in America, not to say that there's not efficiencies in Japan. I think they're one of the most like efficient people and that make the most efficient things in the whole world. It's that the idea that like things made in small batches, artisanship, focus, these are discipline. These are like really important attributes of their culture that really drew me to it, like more of that like discipline thing, like being hungry for it and being like, oh wow, there is one way to do this. And at the same time, ramen being like such a new food, there's like principles, but there's no real rules, There's it's noodles and soup. Have fun.
Right.
There's 3 ways to season: shio, shoyu, miso. Go
for it.
Go.
And you got exposed to that at 210 Jack.
I got exposed to that when I staged at 210 Jack.
Yeah.
I had found the Momofuku cookbook. That my roommate at the time, her name was Kate, and she had the Momofuku cookbook on her shelf. She also worked with me at Nikki's, and so I was like, wow, like this is really wild. Like, I'm coming at this like just learning about chefs. Like everyone's like, oh, you didn't know who David Chang was, you fucking idiot. I'm like,
dude, chefs are such dicks.
And I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm fucking sorry. Do you know who the fuck Crazy Spirit from New York is?
Yeah,
I'll talk to you about fucking hardcore. You want to talk about punk music? You don't know shit about shit. Go listen to fucking dubstep or whatever you like. I don't know. It's like, so I found that book and was like, oh wow, this is really interesting. And then like,
but you were just staging at 210 Jack. You weren't working there.
No. I only staged like maybe 3 shifts.
Yeah.
And Trey and Jess are just the most wonderful
They're
people.
amazing human beings.
They're really the most wonderful
They truly
people.
are amazing human beings.
They're really wonderful people. Yeah. And they were so kind and gracious to me, and like really took the time to explain things to me and fed me, and that I was just like, wow, like this is really cool. I just want to learn more about ramen, and they've been really kind and supportive and just really great people. And 210 is still a great restaurant.
I agree.
Like it's I love 210.
Yeah. So you're still working at Nikki's?
Yeah, I was still working at Nikki's.
You're staging
at 210 when I can while working at Shohan.
Okay. Jesus Christ, man.
I mean, it was only 3 shifts. It was like a consistent, like wide, like a stage, like for 6 months or anything.
Right.
But I learned a few things there, and it just really solidified. I mean, that and like learning about Ivan Orkin and Endo Momofuku, these older guys like Sano-san, Yamagishi-san, figuring out who Mike Satinover is in Chicago. Chicago Pete Sawyer, Ramen Lord. That guy is awesome. I was messaging him the other day, and he's like, "I'm not a chef." I was like, "Fuck you!" Like, "Fuck you." He's like, "I'm in advertising." It's like, yeah, but like he single-handedly, as that dumb cheeky ass Reddit name, ramen_lord, showed the entire like American and I feel like Western world these clone recipes to these Japanese bowls after him spending time in Japan, and just like has been an incredible resource of saying, hey, I'm just learning. This is what I have arrived at. Like, do with it what you will. I'm gaining knowledge. I'm sharing knowledge, which is really what it's all about.
Yeah, those people are important.
Yeah, you got it. If you're a gatekeeper, get out of the way, because I'm about to like take the class and like, what is it? What's the tool I'm thinking of? I'm moving my hands back and forth. Shears. Is that what you use in a construction sense? Whatever, you break
Jaws of life.
Yes, the jaws of life. You break the lock on the gatekeeping.
Yeah.
You know. It's like life's too short. You got to share I'm a big believer in like sharing whatever with anyone, because what kind of impact are we trying to have?
So how did you get the Bar Sovereign for the pop-up?
So
that was pre-pandemic. Or during pandemic.
Yeah, that was during pandemic.
Right,
after leaving Tanso, I left. I was like, okay.
And this is 2018.
This is
2019.
No, I had left Shohan and Tanso like 20. Yes, that makes sense. Yes, like 2018. So then I left there and went to Josephine. And I was at Josephine I worked there for a year and a half. So 2018 to like to actually a little longer than that. I left Josephine with Chef Andy Little at in early March of 2020.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I was there for a year and a half, 2 years, something like that.
But wait, so you're working at Nikki's, you're staging at a Japanese restaurant.
Yeah.
When did you get the passion to do ramen? Is it kind of in your back of your head right now? You saw how they did it. You're kind of interested in it, but you're not ready to jump full into it. So then you go to like an American kind of restaurant. Yeah.
I was only at Nikki's for like 4 months.
Okay.
While I was at Shohan. And so while I was at Shohan, I was kind of getting interested in ramen. And then my shift to Tanso happened. And while I was at Tanso, before I got promoted to sous chef, I had staged at 210 Jack, and that solidified for me. I was like, okay, I want to.
So why don't you go work at 210 Jack?
I don't think they were hiring at the time.
Yeah.
I think
at that particular moment, you knew that you wanted to do ramen.
I knew I wanted to do ramen.
Yeah.
I think the reason that I stayed at Tanso was just because I'm an incredibly like loyal person, and I felt like I needed to prove it to myself that I could be a sous chef there.
Right, sure.
And
Yeah, I get it.
so I had gotten promoted to sous chef.
Sure.
I got promoted to be sous there, and like just fucking the grind. 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. to
It's almost better not to be sous chef.
11 to 11 p.m. and then do inventory for 2 restaurants, and you leave at 5. I mean, thank God that was only like once a month, but it was like.
So, but the question that I have is, you wanted to do ramen, but you took a job at Josephine. Why?
Because I wanted to see how a kitchen like that functions. It's very different.
Like a brigade system.
Yes.
So I mean, it's kind of French inspired. Josephine is French based.
Josephine,
the systems,
I would say the systems are French based.
French brigade,
the technique is very like French focused or French driven, but the cuisine is Pennsylvania Dutch and Southern.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
But
the structure of the way the kitchens run is a French brigade.
Yes,
system.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so this is interesting because you went from an Indian restaurant to a Chinese restaurant to an Italian restaurant to seeing a Japanese restaurant, and through all of that, you had the foresight to say, I need to see what a French brigade system is run like.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Yeah,
I think that's really smart.
I needed it. I wanted to see what that was like to like not to have like work in a space where it's like, here's the full prep team and here's the night crew. It was like, no, you come in at 3, you sit down for staff meal, service starts at 5. You have 2 hours to not only set up your station and put up tasting plates and do the full clean and the whole 9, but to prep for your station, which is a minimum of like 8 items. So go, run, figure it out. And like, it makes you a better cook. Is it overwhelming? Is it really intense? Is it like, holy shit, how am I going to make it through today? Yeah. Like, absolutely.
Right. When the list doesn't get smaller, it actually gets bigger as
the
day goes on.
No. You
what do you mean you just added 3 more things to the prep list?
No, you get good.
Yeah.
You get good or you get gone.
Uh-huh.
That's it. So
your resume reads like a NATO invitation, It's all these different cuisines and the end result is ramen. Yeah. So you spent 2 years at Josephine because of the pandemic?
Well, so going from like 80, 90 hours a week as a sous chef at Tanso and then going to a line cook at Josephine.
What are you going to do with all this free time on your hands?
I was like, I mean, on the weekends. So I feel like there's really only 2 kinds of cooks. You either love brunch or you hate brunch.
I could agree with that. I fucking hate it.
I love brunch.
Son of a bitch.
I love brunch. Give me
podcast is over.
Give me all the egg mods. Give me the madness. Give me that kind of chaos. Like
holy shit.
Like honestly, I would love to work at Waffle House. Like it's all verbal. And it's like if you fuck up, like fuck you.
I would like to see you do a shift at Waffle House.
At Waffle House, I'd probably fail miserably.
Yeah,
I'm really rusty. But we actually did a brunch at Black Dynasty, and it was a good time.
There's nothing that destroys a restaurant and a kitchen like a Sunday brunch service. The restaurant's destroyed because kids. The dining room. The dining room is destroyed because kids.
The line, if you're not clean, if you don't know how to clean.
The line is just like
it's covered in egg.
dried up, crusty eggs that pancake batter that like. In Chicago, I was at the restaurant Perennial. There was an upstairs and a downstairs, and I forced the nighttime guys that they couldn't come upstairs until brunch service was completely done. We doused down the whole kitchen and we scrubbed everything from top to bottom. And I bought these huge floor fans. Yeah. So we just dry everything right away. And me and the brunch crew had it down to a science of how we would like power wash this kitchen. And the guys would be standing there with all of their sheet trays with other mise en place ready to flip out. And I'd be like, nope, get the fuck back down there, man. Not yet. We still got 10 minutes. And it wasn't until the floors were dried and the brunch crew's like, okay, chef, we're done. And be like, okay, then everybody would like run up with a mad scramble, throw stocks, start reducing because there was no cooking downstairs.
Yeah.
It was just prep.
Yeah.
So it was this mad scramble of people fighting over burners. And I was just like, drop my, see you guys later. Like, I'm out of here.
Have a nice night.
Have a nice night.
I mean, we had to do the same thing. It was basically a condensed version of Close at Night, which to close that kitchen with 6 people took an hour and 45 minutes. And you know, for brunch, it was, you have 45 minutes.
Was it a different brunch crew or you guys working a double?
No, it was a different brunch crew.
Okay, great.
It was a 3-man line on brunch and it was a 5-man line on dinner.
Yeah. Just even the word brunch just gets me like,
yeah,
I'm like cold, you know, I'm just like, oh fuck, you know,
I love it. It's like
I could see like the chopper and the sun setting in the back and like Vietnam, like we left the guy in jungle. It's like
I've never been the guy who's like, I'm gonna wake up at 6 a.m. and like go for a jog and do this. And it was like brunch was a reason.
Fuck that. I don't want to do that either. But I'm still not getting up for brunch. I'd rather go run at 6 a.m. than go to brunch service.
But brunch was like a reason to get up and be like, okay, we're ready for war.
Yeah.
Like 250, 300 brunch covers. Let's go.
There's something crazy. And my friend Brian Houston, who is a chef in Chicago, he has the same kind of thing. And he mentioned it to me one day and I was like, I do this, I can't fucking believe you do the same thing. There's something about brunch of showing up at like 9 o'clock in the morning that just makes me want to drink fountain soda, Coca-Cola, not from the can. It's got to be from the gun and just eat fucking bacon all day.
It's so weird.
It's a weird.
So weird.
And Brian Houston said,
that's so unhealthy.
I was having brunch at Publican one time, and Brian Houston's like, he just comes over to the table just to chat, and he's like, he just defeated, dead behind the eyes, totally defeated. They did probably like 300
Give me a Coke.
The restaurant's just trash. And he's like, I don't drink soda, and it's just something about brunch. I drink 5-6 sodas every Sunday morning. And I'm like, dude, all I do is eat bacon. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like something in my brain neurologically, like, you know, the fuses are crossed, something short circuits.
See, I just eat eggs. I'm never like, oh, I really want eggs. But it's like when you're working, you know, when you're doing French style rolled omelets on black steel.
That looks
you're
pretty
like,
good.
you're like, damn.
Yeah, damn, man. I'm a good brunch cook.
That's a good egg. I like that egg. I was not when I started. I think it took me 6 weeks to figure out how to make. It took me 6 weeks to figure out how to make a real French style rolled omelets, to not get color on eggs, to like really like, you have your nonstick like temp egg pans, and then you have your black steels, and it's like just getting everything right. You like keep all of your burners on like a perfect low, and you're just like go. It's clarified
tough,
butter
man.
made every morning.
It's
like,
tough, man.
It's great.
That's a tough service. Yeah. All right, so you're crushing brunch and loving it.
Yeah. I have mental illness.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So then what?
So I would do brunch in the morning, get off at 4, drive for Lyft till 4 a.m. and then do it all over again. It was like I had all this time, and then I was like, fuck, this isn't enough. So I started doing, you know, I was making ramen at home for kicks during this time, right? Like, because I also had this free time. I was like, okay, I'm gonna like mess around with some noodle recipes and this, that, and the other. It's like looking back on it, it was like really trash. But it was important. It was
an important turning point in your life.
It was. I was like, okay, I have time to like focus on this food and to do this
and to play.
And so I was like, okay, I finally have something that I think is like pretty good. So I'm gonna do pop-ups out of my house. So it was like me and my friend Parker, who worked with me at Josephine. He now makes knives with Duncan over at Horn and Heel. My friend Riley, my friend Jeray. And it was the 4 of us just like, hey, let's do 5 courses for 10 people out of my house. And, you know, my girlfriend Lily, who now works at Lulu, she had like made up a quick drink menu. And, you know, we did that. We did our first one and then it like stopped. Mm-hmm. And we were like, damn, okay. It's because we had roommate problems and the whole 9. And we just took a break from it. And then like sometime later, we were like, okay.
And now we're in 2019.
Okay. And so I did about 3 or 4 of these. My friend Eddie, who now works at Soho House, I think at the time he was working at Josephine with me. So he brought his friend that he knew named Troy, who I think Eddie used to work at Nikki's as well long after I did, as a bartender. And so Eddie was a bartender at Josephine and was like, hey, I work part-time at Nikki's, like this guy that comes in all the time, I'm going to invite him. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. No context. So this guy came, and his name is Troy. And he showed up to that dinner. He was like, oh, this is pretty good. Thanks for the good time. I was like, yeah, absolutely. And we did our best to make our house like a different experience. We're playing Black Sabbath, and I had a projector in the room, so I got like colored filters and put like red colored filters over like Seventh Samurai and like Kurosawa films, and we had the same format for our dinners that we did out of the house. It was always kushiyaki, always a skewer to start, always gyoza, some kind of dumpling, always saradu, always a salad, ramen, and a dessert, just like a little sweet, whatever that was.
Sounds dope.
And it was simple. It was $50 a person. I didn't make any goddamn money, but it was really fun, because I got to pay my friends and got to pay for the food, and it was good enough for me.
Yeah.
And I was, Black Dynasty was never supposed to be a restaurant. It was just supposed to be that.
Yeah.
And that was all it was. I was like, I'm going to do this indefinitely till I get fucking tired and disgruntled.
So how did you hook up with the guys from Bar Sovereign?
So Troy, who came to 2 of those dinners, he's like, hey, asshole, how would you like to do this for real? Like, what if you did 100? And I was like, yeah, we'll do that. And at this time we're making noodles on KitchenAids and like didn't know anything about laminating and combing and like the proper way to like make ramen. We're just like, I'm just like make some dough and portion it into balls, ripping apart this dough and cheating it,
basically
and cutting
take a spaghetti approach to making ramen.
It was terrible. It was like the hydration was so high, so it could like work on it, which is fine. There's high hydration ramen, but it was just done so wrong.
Yeah.
So we're like, so we made 100 of those noodles, and did a pop up at Bar Sovereign. We were like trying to figure out how to balance the water. I mean, that first time we got a reputation for cleaning really, really, really well, because we made such a goddamn mess. Because the slurry water just like keeps coming.
Yes.
And you have to like transfer you gotta keep replenish the water / switch the water / you have like 4 pots, but then you're like, I need a burner for soup. What the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
And you're just going back and forth.
It's like ramen Jenga.
It was madness.
Yeah.
And so 100 people showed up and we were like, Jesus Christ. Well, how the hell do people like even know about us? We have like 500 followers.
How did they find out about it?
I posted, I handmade flyers at the time. This is before Kinko's had cut their hours. And so at this point, I call it Kinko's. Maybe that dates me. FedEx Express. We
and Preston had no idea what you're talking about, Kinko's.
They were open. Well, FedEx used to be called Kinko's, okay? Fuck me. So I used to make the flyers like by hand, like cutting out whatever and getting images from Google and just being like, I hope nobody sues me, and making the flyers, and I just put them everywhere. Every Asian restaurant that would let me, every Asian grocery store, anyone. I passed out handbills to people I would see. Like I would drive for Lyft and be like, hey, you should like come to this thing, like
here's my demo tapes.
Yeah, shameless self-promotion. Just like, I'm that annoying asshole. You're like, what the fuck is this like chicken scratch CD? I'm not gonna listen to this. So it's like they just see this like really shitty like black and white handbill, and they're like, So I just did that and put it on Instagram, and that was it. And we did 100 people, and then after that we did a pop-up at Nicoletto's, and then we did it for Halloween, and then we did a pop-up at Redheaded Stranger for Christmas, and then we did a pop-up at Nectar Urban Cantina, which was like the most fucking legendary, like 300 people standing in 25-degree weather. It was like, is this real?
Fuck, man.
Is this real? Like, people are really here.
Love to wait in line for ramen.
Dude, it was madness. I was like, yo, I'm not even that good of a cook, like screaming at all these people.
If only they knew.
I'm really fucking not, dude. I'm learning. At this point, I hadn't even made any chintan, which is like chintan is like closer to like a French style or like a Western style stock, and that like it's very clear and beautiful, etc. Right? I hadn't even done chintan at that point. I was just doing all pythons, all cloudy soups, and rich, creamy. If you want to get technical, it's like koteri python, which is like, koteri means like rich. Mm-hmm. So it's rich and cloudy, as opposed to asari chintan, which is like light and
brothy,
light and clear. Uh-huh. Chintan is actually a Chinese word that translates to Japanese. It means fresh water. So like it's like a clear soup. Mm-hmm. And so I shoyus and shios for the most part are clear soups, whatever. There's no rules because then you have IEK style, which is shoyu tonkatsu with slightly wider noodles. And anyway, I digress. The Nectar gig was just like, oh fuck, this is really wild. I think Troy was just a dude who was like hanging out at that time. He was just like around and was like, yeah, man, like, because he hooked us up with Bar Sovereign. That's how that connection was made. Mm-hmm. He showed up to 2 of the dinners. He's like, how'd you like to do this for real? Connected us with
But he had no
Gabriel.
connection with Bar Sovereign? He just
No.
knew?
Well, he had
people.
So he has an ATM business and he works at Land Rover in Brentwood, has an ATM business and a sock company. He has like a couple side hustles, and he had the ATM at Bar Sovereign and was like, and had a healthy relationship with Gabriel, who like, I love Gabe so much, and I can't thank him enough for like letting us do our thing there and eventually giving us a home inside of Bar Sovereign during the pandemic, because I mean, long story short, after all these pop-ups and it's like, oh, this is cool. Like, hey, Gabe, would you be into like letting us come in here and like we can work something out? Like, we'll pay half of whatever. He was like, yeah, this sounds awesome. Let's do that. And so,
but they weren't serving any food there, or they were?
They did
they
like
had a kitchen, right?
Yeah, they had a kitchen.
Yeah.
I think they were doing like small sandwiches or something at the time. Eventually, they used to have a menu. That had like a burger on it and this, that, and the other. But they downsized. I think at some point they were just like doing nachos or just like small bar food. Yeah. They did wings. So they were doing wings out of there, and I was like, hey, like, how would you feel? Would you be into like us coming in here and like just kind of being here, like living here? Do you want to do this thing? And he was like, yeah, if it cuts my rent in half and brings more people in, I'm down. Well, fuck it. And so, so I quit my day job at Josephine. I put in my 2 weeks. And, Andy was really supportive and was like, hey, go get it. Do your thing. Proud of you. Because I remember when I interviewed there, he asked me, what do you want to do? The Andy Little interview questions are pretty
What do you want to do?
good.
I want to make ramen and work brunch services.
He
drive for Lyft.
Exactly. He said, what do you really, he's like, what's your goal? I said, well, I want to have a ramen shop one day. He said, okay. What was the last cookbook you read? I don't remember what it was at the time, but he asked, what's the last cookbook you read? What's the last food-focused piece of film that you've watched? And what do you actually want to do after this? And I think those are really, really important questions and things that I think were interesting and introspective, and that like, okay, like how much do you care? Mm-hmm. It's like, are you actually invested? Do you actually take the time to read? Do you study? Is this just a job to you? And that was a pretty cool approach, I think. Mm-hmm. So I had quit there. I'd put in my 2 weeks. And at this point, COVID was kind of just this nebulous thing. Like, what the American mindset is. Oh, that's something somewhere else. That can never hurt us. I have no idea
how
what that
naive
is.
we were. How naive we were in April 2020.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was convinced it was going to be like 3 weeks and it was going to blow over. So, I mean, as the majority of the world probably.
So shutdown happened here, I believe March 15th. Mm-hmm. So I had quit like 2 weeks before that. Like my last day was like early March. So I was like, and then shutdown happened like a week later. And I was like, oh fuck, I can't get unemployment. I like need
worst decision ever in history.
I was like,
quit your job a day before a global pandemic and everyone's just like living off of unemployment and PPE money.
And I was like, fuck, I like have to do this. Yeah. Because if I don't do this, I'm homeless again.
Yeah.
Like round 2, no thank you. Mm-hmm. It's the opposite of Mortal Kombat, round 2 fight. I was like, okay, let's go. Let's figure it out. And so we just went for it. And we did like a rotating menu, and we posted the menu every day on Instagram, and people sent us their orders via Venmo and texted us when they arrived, and we made the food. We ran it out the back door, handwritten tickets. We got pretty drunk regularly. Troy kept bringing bottles of tequila, and it was really fun. And he brought like fucking Altos every other day, and we drank like half a bottle of tequila, and we're like, what are we cooking today?
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Like everybody talks about like, oh, like this, that, and the other. I was like, no, like we we started the restaurant and it was so stressful and it was so this, that, and the other. It was like the total opposite. We like started a party and it like turned into a restaurant.
That's the best way.
And that was like the dead
best
serious.
Intentions.
People are like, ha 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 ha. I'm like, no, you don't fucking get it. Like there were blunts and there was tequila and there was sake and it was serious. It was a good time. And everybody handled their shit. We made the food that we made. Like that's how I think a lot of people came to know us, was the food that we made during that time. Yeah. And I don't know what other restaurants were thinking or doing during that time. I'm sure it was really like being more established now and doing it all over again. I would be way more scared because like once you're established and you have all of these expectations and all these things, it's like at that time we were like the little engine that could. And now I feel like we're the little engine that motherfucking has to.
Yeah.
Right.
I think everything was thrown out during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Grant Achatz is a great example of how to pivot during a pandemic where he's making chicken coq au vin. And he's like selling 1,800 in a day.
Yeah.
Like they turned Royster and the Aviary into like this like mass pickup for you to take your car. There'd be people with walkie-talkies. Well, what's your number? And then they'd run the food out to you. I mean, it was a pretty impressive thing.
Yeah.
To see a group pivot like that. But
we should have got walkie-talkies. God damn it.
Yeah, we'll get them. Yeah, we'll get them. We'll definitely get them for the next podcast.
Thanks.
The first time that I had heard about you was Danny Nicoletto. You were making noodles.
God, I love Danny so much.
Danny hyped you. First of all, he's a great fucking guy.
He really is.
He's a
stand-up man and makes a good product.
He makes great product and he's a good fucking dude. And I was making some pasta and stuff for these little pop-up dinners I was doing out of my house for the pandemic. I had nothing else to do. And I was like, fuck, I need to make pasta. So I called Danny. He's like, yeah, of course you could come here. And I'd go there like once a week and make pasta. And I really got to know him very well. We became very good friends during it. First of all, he was doing me a huge favor and it was like nothing to him. But he was like saving my life. And second, he was just like, he kept talking about this kid that's making this ramen and he makes the noodles here, blah, blah, blah. And Ryan, you should check it out. I was like, yeah, okay, no. And then I'd be there again and he'd be talking about you. His ramen is really delicious and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. So one day I just strolled in there and I just ordered some food and I went and sat down and the buzzer came up and you were standing behind the counter and you're like, Chef, so great to have you. I didn't even know who the fuck you were. Like, I didn't know who the guy was behind there that was running. All I knew is Danny Nicoletto said, this is fucking delicious ramen and he makes his own noodles and he's really passionate. I'm like, well, that's enough for me to go check it out. And I go pick up my pickup order, the little counter, and you're standing there and you're like, Jeff, so great to have you here, man. Here, try this. I want you to try this too. And I'm like, oh, thanks, man. Like, cool.
Bombarding him.
Yeah,
when all he wanted to do was
I just want a simple bowl of ramen. And I'm like tied into like a fucking green leaf salad, I was like, great, thanks, man. You're giving me a chore now,
Hey, I saw Ryan Poley on the board and I was like, oh, fuck, I know that name.
Yeah.
That guy might be important or something.
I didn't use
don't know.
my Tony Baloney alias, but and I remember eating, I was like, fuck, he was right. This is fucking delicious ramen. And I was like completely blown away. And then I started bringing people back and then I was so sad. Like when I heard that you guys, this is our last, I started following you on Instagram and it was like, this is our last service at Bar Salver. And I was like, no, where are you going, man? Fuck, I just found this place. Like, fuck you, man.
We just couldn't do both. We were talking with, during the pickup times, because we opened to the pub.
It seemed like a lot. First of all, the kitchen was fucking tiny.
It was too much.
And you guys were cranking it. Every time I went in there, the place was crazy busy and everybody's just eating anything they can eat.
Yeah, it was
and I felt like it was a tiny fucking across the kitchen was right
our
across
walk-in
from the
was like our walk-in was like 8x8.
Yeah.
We were working out of 2 white residential fridges.
Yeah,
I mean, like it was insane. Yeah. It was insane, and we had a 6-burner range that was Boeing because of the 160 quart pot.
Right.
That 40-gallon pot of soup that was on every day.
Right.
Taking it on and off, and Danny was such a badass for letting us make noodles, giving us the opportunity to make noodles at his factory to be legit. And, we just looked at ourselves and we were like, hey, we're about to go into this other venture too. Like this was supposed to be quote unquote location number 2. And then I just kind of rethought everything that we're doing. I'm like, look, like chain ramen is cool. And I think it's great because it spreads awareness. It spreads the culture. But that's not what I want to do. And that's okay, right? I didn't want to have like an empire of like 20 shops. Like that's just not what I want to do. Like maybe 1 or 2. And I was so not ready for number 2. Like there was just no way. We, with...
Where was the second location at?
Bearded Iris.
Bearded Iris.
Bearded Iris. And that's where we're at now.
That's where you're at now, yeah.
So
the plan was, how did you get linked up with the Bearded Iris guys? Because they were building a kitchen.
Yeah,
they were still building.
Yeah, so they were still building. They were in the design phase, and they were just starting like basic construction. And Paul had reached out. Paul loves ramen.
He's a great guy too.
He loves ramen so
dude.
much. Like the dude just like loves noodles.
Yeah.
His whole family loves noodles. His kid comes in and is like, I love noodles.
Yeah.
And they just like found our stuff, and they were like, yeah, do you want to like, they just met us and met Troy, and they were like, hey, we'd love to get you in if you're down. And we're like, absolutely. Yeah. We would love to be a part of that. And so we were just at this crossroads where it's like, can we do both? Like there's no way, like, cause our whole scope was like to independently make soup at each shop, independently make these things. It's just not consistent. I mean, it's like you just look at places that have a similar menu for multiple locations, and they centralize production. That's just the way it works.
They have to.
Yeah. And it's like, I didn't see any other way of doing it.
Well, it becomes inconsistent also. If you have 3 shops and each one's making their own broth,
yeah, it's inconsistent.
It's so inconsistent.
And I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I was like, no, like if we're doing a thing, we're doing a thing. And, we're now, at Iris, and now that we've been there for a year, we're actually going to go and do the original idea that we wanted to do for that shop, which was to do one soup. Sorry, I don't know when this is going to be released, but we'll probably already make the change by then. But we're only going to do one bowl and then do like garlic and Hellfire chili crisp as an add-on, because it just makes more sense for labor. It makes more sense for production. It also gives us the opportunity to like really focus on doing a monthly small plate, a monthly dessert, and our weekly specials. Because even though we have these things lined up now and more organized than we've ever been, it's still like, oh, fuck, who's making the special this week? And I just don't want to do that. I just want to know. I want to go in things with stride. Like, I think a big part of kitchen culture that's really, that I love, but that I hate at the same time, is that it's always so wild. It's so intense. It's so, okay, what's happening next? Like pushing. And I'm just like, but how much more can you do if you afford yourself the time to like breathe,
Well, the whole less is more.
Less is more. Yeah. And that's just what we're approaching. We have an 8-item menu now. I mean, at one point it was 9 on any given day. I was just like, oh fuck, we have 12 items on the menu today. How did we get here? We have a 4-burner range, a noodle cooker, a flat top that's the size of that laptop, and a deep fryer that has a bay as big as that laptop.
But I think you have a clientele now that they're coming in because you're cooking food, and they're not just coming in to get a bowl of ramen. Do you feel like, last time I was there, I saw it where people were ordering a bunch of things.
Yeah.
And talking about it and being engaged. Yeah. As opposed to probably some people that just want to come in for a bowl of ramen and that's it.
Well, I think like every ramen head's dream is just like have a shop that has a couple bowls and that's it. Maybe sake, maybe an app. In the States, you just can't do it. You can't do that. It's just not it.
Unfortunately.
It's a bummer, but at the same time, it's not, because it's an excuse for, I think, us as cooks and for myself as a cook to like explore and to do things that we've never done before. Like that's kind of, we still do tastings every once in a while. And the point of tastings for me isn't like, hey, what up? I'm going to flex. It's more of me being like, I don't know how to fucking cook octopus like that. I'm going to figure it out.
Right.
I'm going to like, and if it sucks, I won't serve it. I'll do something else. But it's like an excuse to push myself and to learn. And that's kind of our ethos, is like, everyone's a student. I'm not a master of fucking anything, and like leave ego at the door and let's just get good and have a good time.
Yeah, I agree.
That's it.
What's also conditioning the American diner, and I put myself into that category also, of going to a restaurant and ordering a bowl of ramen and be like, okay, well, what else you got? While I'm waiting, what am I going to eat while I'm waiting?
Yeah.
And what am I going to have for dessert? As opposed to in Tokyo, it's like you go in, you eat your bowl of ramen, you fucking get the fuck out of there, man.
Yeah.
It's a 20-minute process from start to finish, depending how busy it is.
Which is really what I think every ramen head that has a shop would like. I kind of want to incorporate that. We're talking about having a standalone.
Yeah, but I mean, I've been in ramen shops that are the size of this studio.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
great. That's the kitchen.
Six people around the bar eating. A line of people standing against the wall next to what looks like an old cigarette machine where you put the money in and you push what ramen you want, what add-ons you want. It spits out a ticket, and they ask you they take the next 5 people in line. They get their tickets, and they keep it all organized. And yeah, that's an amazing model for Japan. Yeah, I don't understand how that would fly unless hard. Acme turned this portion of the radio studio into a ramen shop, and it was just it wasn't a moneymaker. It was it was like an amenity they had. Oh, you know what you got to do? You got to go to Acme before the show, but then after the show, they do this late night ramen, and there's only 8 seats. That's the hook.
That is the hook, and that's the thing is that it's just really hard to do. It's a labor-intensive food. I wish I was passionate about pizza the same way I am about this food.
Well, the percentage on money also is not there.
It's the amount of labor that it takes to do it right. Mm-hmm. There are even a lot of shops in Japan, they use soup base. Right. They buy noodles in bulk from a noodle manufacturer. Now, given
was it Sunwa's the one in New York? Is that the noodle manufacturer?
I know
it's pretty
that
good.
Sun makes noodles here. Miyojo makes noodles here. You can go to K&S here on Charlotte and get Miyojo packets.
Yes.
It's good. It's good. They're good noodles.
When you bite into a fresh noodle,
awesome.
I mean, it's just kind of the difference.
It is the difference, right? And I think that even if guests don't necessarily know or don't necessarily care, because I don't expect everyone to be like, oh, did you know that they make their own noodles? It's if you interview everyone in our dining room, they'll be like, I'm sure that more than half would be like, no.
Well, the majority would be like, I didn't even know the name of the place. My daughter brought me here.
Yeah, exactly, right. That's true.
Yeah.
When people come in and they're like, so why I order drinks at the bar, but I'm like, yeah, we're two separate businesses in the same space.
It's a really hard sell, man.
It is a hard sell. I hate QR codes.
Yeah.
I used to think
you and the rest of the world, man.
I used to think that it's oh, this is the future of ordering, and it's
so did I for a while.
I'm a romantic.
Yes.
I want a paper menu.
Yes.
Maybe something that's laminated that can't be, but then when you throw it away, it's plastic.
There's so many problems. Well,
can it be made of corn, and then when you're done, it just disappears?
Right, or just eat it. Do the
you could do the edible menu.
Homaru Kantu kind of just eat your menu. But it's also I see both sides. The QR code is so convenient. You want to change something? Do no problem. Just go into the computer, update the QR code. Now it's done. As opposed to collect all the menus and make sure you go behind the bar because they stuff menus everywhere. Yeah. And all of a sudden now, the halibut dish that's not on the menu anymore, 5 days after we changed the menu, the bartender's still handing out those menus because he had a little cubbyhole of stack of menus.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's frustrating. But there's also something about getting the menu, looking at it, putting it aside, following along. As the dishes come out, still having the menu to follow along. But then the QR code is well, if you have bad internet, you can't get the
if you have bad
download.
Internet, it's also
it's hard to see. You got to blow it up. You got to maximize it, minimize it.
It's also even if you're going, because what are we trying to do when we do have a standalone space? The idea is that the kitchen functions in a fine dining way. We're clean, we're focused, it's regimented, it's healthy, it's a good kitchen. It's anybody that would come and work here would take pride in what they do because that's just what we do. But the dining experience needs to be, in my opinion, a fast casual diner. Because I want when Susie and Joe come in, hey Susie, hey Joe, how's it going? You want the usual? I gotcha. Yeah, and that is
I'll have the marinara ramen.
Yeah, I'll have the marinara ramen. Put it in the bolo. It's a good. You want it to be a healthy experience where you develop relationships with regulars. And the QR code, we already spend so much goddamn time on our phones. I mean, I know I do to keep up with you. It's very important. It's an important part of my day.
Bad habit I have.
But it's that's fine, right? Because you need it for every other part of your life. You can't do shit in this town without a car and a phone, right? But you need it for all these other parts of your life. But to go out to eat, to be hey, you need to scan this on your phone.
It should be a safe haven.
Yeah,
going out to dinner should be a safe haven away from your phone, even though it's not.
It should be a good time. It's to me, it's just going to a show. right? It's like you're going to be connected and to experience something. You're going to see this touring band, this whatever, and it means something. And you shouldn't have to record every aspect of it.
100%. Dude, I always stand in front of these people, usually at Fish shows, that are just recording like the whole song. And I'm like, the fuck are you going to do with that video, man? Like sometimes I'll just snap like a quick video or quick picture to send some people. Like, what are you doing? Like, you got to check this shit out.
A 10 second,
boom, boom,
that's
boom.
fine.
But like to stand there with your phone during the whole song, and then I get distracted. I'm watching the show through their phone, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Life is happening in front of you.
Exactly,
Stop watching it through the guy's phone.
That's the thing. Unless you are like your job is to document, like a videographer at a set. Like if you're going to pick up,
this is some shitty cracked screen, iPhone that the guy has. He's not documenting anything.
If you're seeing the OCs at Levitation Fest, it's like that's one thing, right? Great set. If you're seeing King Gizzard and you want to capture the set, right? That thrash metal record is really tits.
Fuck. Okay, hang on. Let's pivot away from ramen for a second, and let's talk about. Have you listened to their new album?
No, what is their new album?
The Dripping Tap. I forget the name of it, but the song "The Dripping Tap" will fucking.
It's called Omnium Gatherum, Ryan.
Thank you, Preston. Omnium Gatherum. Thank you.
Omnium. Say that 10 times fast.
I got turned on to King Gizzard from my friends, and I'm like, what is it? They're like, first of all, my friend Jess Mann, who's in the music business, he's like, he always turns me on to new music. He turned me on to Krugbin back in like 2016 when I saw him at the Cannery. There was like 300 people there. It was fucking great. It was fucking great. He goes, you got to start listening to King Gizzard. He's like, what is it? He goes, impossible to lock down. But he goes, it's thrash metal, jam band, punk rock, all in one. I'm like, bro, that sounds fucking terrible. And he's like, listen. On our friendship, you have to see these guys. So I was in LA, and just by chance, they were playing at the Greek Theater.
Yeah.
And my friends had an extra ticket. I'm like, okay, I'll give this a try. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody in the Fish community is talking about them. Everybody in like the rock world, the slash metal world is talking about them. Like they're the fucking it shit.
They change their sound every record.
They're a complete fucking different band from song to song. So I'm standing at the show, and they're just going there, and they're weaving into songs to the next song. And I was with my friend. I'm like, what songs? He's like, dude, nobody knows, man. They dropped like 9 albums in like a month, and there's like Altered Beast 1, Altered Beast Part 2, Altered Beast Part 2. He's like, I have no fucking idea. And I was almost more blown away by watching the fans who are so fucking amped to be there and into it. Yeah. I had a better time like watching the people around me and enjoying it. And then we got to see them at Shaky Knees Festival.
Yeah.
And it was like dance fucking party central. I saw so many fucking mullets, first of all, in the state in the audience.
That's good.
I don't know.
That's good. I don't know. That's how you know it's a real party.
I don't understand how mullets and wearing a bathing suit out in public became like fashion for men.
I love it.
I can't get behind it, man. You're in a bathing suit, you have a mullet on, and you have like white K-Swiss on, or like Chuck Taylor's on. Like,
hey, if their Crocs look like lobsters, it's Croc Lobster.
Is that a B-52 song?
I don't know. Yeah, it is. They did a commercial.
So they dropped their new album, and this song "Dripping Tap" is exactly what I said. It's thrash metal, jam band, psychedelic jam band into fucking punk rock, and it is I'm obsessed with this band and that song. I highly recommend go and see King Gizzard live in concert.
Yeah, I need to see it. I've never seen them.
It is impossible to describe what it is, and it's so much fucking fun. And it's like it ended, and I was like holding my side. I'm like, oh, thank God it's over. I can't dance anymore. Like I was so sweaty, and we're just like, holy fuck. And then we walked over to see Nine Inch Nails, which was like, I mean, fucking legends, man. Absolute fun. And like, sounds the same. Took me right back to like 1991. Like, I'm a little bit older than you. But
I was born in 91.
Fucking amazing show. Amazing weekend of music, man. But King Gizzard is like, that's a spicy
it's
meatball,
a great,
man.
it's
good stuff, man.
It's a great band.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's like, I think the last show that I really threw down on, there was a house show for this band here in town, a band from New York that came to tour called Crazy Spirit, and it's very pogoable. It's It is some gnarly hardcore punk recorded on 4 tracks. That's like the vocals are like
gross.
He sounds like a gremlin. And I think about bands that I would like. Who would I really throw down for? One of my favorite bands of all time. It's Coach Whips. John Dwyer from the OC's previous band. He also used to play in a band
Preston's
called,
nodding his head yes.
called The Hospitals.
Stamp
Coach
of approval.
Whips,
Okay.
fantastic, incredible band. My whole thing is like I love songs 2 minutes or under, so you can make me want to play it again.
Oh yeah, see, I'm in the like 35-minute range of like, dude, why did you stop?
So you love sleep. So you love any stoner stuff. You're probably a big fan of Sleep.
I liked getting sleep. Yeah, I've never heard of the band.
You
Huge fan of at least 8 hours.
Heavy. They have a song that's I think 60 minutes long. What's the side's Dope Smoker? Side A.
Is this something I like,
That's the
Preston?
one.
Is this something I like?
Man, it's heavy, but it's really great. I would recommend it to anybody.
Okay.
Much like King Gizzard, it's
Yeah, hard to label.
It's hard to label, but it's also, I mean, it's just sludgy stoner rock in the best way, and it's very fun.
All right, I'll throw it on the list.
I love it. Sleep's great.
So you were a music. What did you play when you were a music?
Mainly guitar and vocals, but I played bass drums. Yeah, that's it.
The crossover from musicians to chefs or cooks or culinary is like,
it's pretty big.
Why do you think that is?
Because music and food, it's an art and a craft. Some people would argue that it's more of a craft, that cooking is more of a craft than an art. But I think it just depends on like what direction you want to go or what you're trying to do. Because I think that if your goal is to it's interesting. Like, what's your goal with a plate of food aside from, no shit, we have to make money. That's like a fucking given. Okay, moving on. What's the goal? It's to like build a food memory while tapping into another one, right? It's like it's like that Ratatouille moment, right? That's like it's such a dumb reference and such like a silly movie, but like
It's a fucking great movie.
but
man.
but honestly, that's it. If that's not it, then what is it?
Yeah.
Well,
I always equate it to menus are set lists.
Yeah.
And you can't go right if you're doing a multi-course taste. Let's just take tasting menus for right now.
Yeah.
And if you sit down and have a multi-course tasting menu, you cannot have your face melted on the encore at the first dish.
No.
You can't. Your palate would be taxed. You'd be fucking done. You've peaked. So what you have to do is you have to warm up the audience, warm up the palate, warm up the table.
Yeah.
By giving them small little bites first, caviar, little canapes, little one bites, and then slowly move them through the way a degustation menu works, with ending on the big meat course and then coming in for the encore of blowing their minds with the fucking dessert.
For sure.
You know?
And it depends on like what kind of chef you are, like what approach, right? Because to me, it's like mentioning Coach Whips or like a band like the Gizmos or whatever, like any number of musical groups. Like my taste, for the most part, even like the Ronettes, right? I'm a huge rock and roll
Ronettes are
guy.
great, yeah.
I love Bo Diddley. I love Chuck Berry. Like all these songs are like 2-3 minutes, bang, bang, bang. And so the thing is when you have a record that is, 20 minutes long, every song has to count. And so to me, it's like if you have a tasting that's like 5 to 10 courses, if you go smaller portion sizes, to me, I wouldn't even do, like my approach isn't the warm up. It's like, boom, right off the bat, like one after the other, after the other, after the other, get it done. That's why I would rather do a course dinner that's like 6 things or 5 things instead of 30 things.
Correct.
So that way it's like, boom, get them in, get them out.
More memorable, right.
Here
yeah.
you go. Like you can tell me what each one was 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
If you remember them and it's all bangers, 2 minutes or under, let's go.
It's very difficult for me to sit down and have a 3-hour tasting meal these days. I want dinner to be
Who
an
has
hour.
the fucking time?
Who has the fucking time, man? And I know that there's great restaurants and there's restaurants I would love to fucking go eat at, but bro, I can't, man. I can't sit down and have 30 courses and 8 of them be total shit.
Well, that's the thing. Here's the other thing.
What the fuck? This was a miss? Why is this even on the menu, man?
The other thing.
Who okayed this dish?
The other thing is that it's like, what else about, I feel like a big part of going out to eat needs to not only be the food, right? It's like going to see a band. It's like if I see a band in a big amphitheater, I mean, that's also just not my style. I want to see something in a room with like 70 people, and just like, it's like everyone there like really gives a fuck.
Right.
And that's the experience, right? Is that it's like I want to make dinner a party. I don't want it to just be going out to eat. Like, kind of, we were talking about design before this went on, but like talking about restaurant design, like every bar looks like a speakeasy. Every new American restaurant is like white walls with light wood, and every 8 feet is a potted plant. And they're like, that's design. And it's like, that's boring, man. Like, let's talk about like, just doing something more, doing something different. And maybe it's because I'm an overwhelming, overzealous, talks too much asshole that is way too loud and obnoxious. But like, for me, like what I want in a dining experience is like, if you have the opportunity to make your own restaurant, you want to make it like the thing that you would want to eat at, right? Like, what's like the best dinner?
I want a place that I'd want to hang out at.
Yeah, where do you want to go? And it's like, to me, I want, as far as design, to go like intentional maximalism. Like, I've never been to Japan, and I have watched many a YouTube video and looked at many a Google image and just like fantasized about it and like plan on going. I just got to get my shit together. Who knows when the fuck that's going to be. But it's like, I want to go, and I just imagine like what that feeling is to see all these lights and all these lanterns and this like overwhelming experience of like scent, smell, and color. And it's like, it is not a white wall with a potted plant. It is like everything. And when you go to that same corner, you could go to that same corner every day in Tokyo for a whole week, and you notice a new thing in that space, which to me is like, that's part of a good restaurant, right? Is that like, you don't want to get bored. And most of the time, how do people do that? They change the menu.
Right.
That's how they do that. I want to do that in more than one way. Let's like one thing that I want to do is I want to get like 6 Furbies and hide them in different places. And if the kids, it's only for kids, okay? I can't have like 22-year-old people come in here. You cannot come in here and find the Furbies. Okay, it's for kids. It's for kids. If you find all 6 Furbies, you get a free dessert, or you get like a bowl of ramen on us or something. And that it makes it fun. It makes it interesting. And I want to be that kind of restaurant where it's like, yeah, the food is just good. It's taken seriously. We so obviously really don't take ourselves very seriously.
That's what makes you a unique chef, and that's what makes you a personable chef.
I appreciate that.
And that's why we wanted to sit down with you, because you're not a speakeasy bar. You're doing something different.
For the record, nothing is a speakeasy if it's fucking legal. Okay? What I did outside of Bar Sovereign, that was a fucking speakeasy, ramen, whatever situation. That shit was not out of my house. That was fucking illegal. Okay? So anyone who has design like you're trying to be edgy, just fucking get a grip, man.
Yeah.
You're not.
So what's next, man? What's next for you? I mean, I know we talked about a lot, and I know you got some things working. You're at Bearded Iris right now.
Yeah.
What does the next 5 years look like?
I don't know. Figuring it out.
Do you even have that answer?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I
know it's not saying this is the next 5 years, but what do you dream about? When you go to bed, what do you dream about at night?
It's the standalone.
Restaurant-wise, when you dream at night.
Yes.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I just saved Preston a lot of editing.
It's full service. It's a full service restaurant that has a bar program. We are able to do some events. I love the idea of going on tour, my hands in quotations, and getting a Black Dynasty food truck or whatever and being like, yo, we're gonna serve yakisoba and we're gonna blare Black Flag and have a good time and go place to place and event to event and rock it like that. Take that opportunity not only to have some cash flow for the restaurant, but also to have that kind of exciting energy. I don't want to do caterings where it's okay, I know exactly how many people are coming in. It's why I don't want to do reservations. It's no fun. When you know all the variables, Like I don't know if this is really healthy or not, but like I really love chaos. I really thrive in chaos. And I think that's a big part of
I didn't pick that up during the podcast, huh?
I think that's a big part of why people who come from music love cooking, is because it's like, yeah, the menu is a set list, and it's so intense, and it's like you don't know where you're gonna sleep that night, you don't know what's gonna happen, and like so many metaphors and
then we played a bad show, and tomorrow we have to play a good show.
Exactly. There's bad services or good services,
Yes.
and it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. I tell everybody who I work with at the shop that it's okay. It's okay to have bad days. We just gotta like get a little bit better every day.
Every day. That's all it takes.
That's it.
I think we'll end it on that. Chef Rooney, thanks for hanging out with us, man. It was an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
Definitely one of my favorite chefs in Nashville.
Get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here, kid. Let's go get something to eat. Yeah?
Love that.
Right on.
Thank you.